Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the HLPL2 revision meeting. We will start real quick with the Project Lombok. The professor was nice enough to keep all of the annotations we'll be using in the same place. So I'll just start because I don't think we've done annotations before. So real quick, what is an annotation? An annotation in Java starts with an @ symbol and it has some information that is useful for the compiler. So we write the code, and there's a step in between writing the code and it getting executed. So we write some code in our file. We write some code in our file, and when we click run, there is a step in between where this gets converted into bytecode. So that step is done using the Java compiler, and there's a lot of information that we can give the compiler to maybe change some things. For example, you already know that exception handling, right? It's exception handling is a B3 topic. And real quick, if we do something that might throw an exception, for example, if we open a new file, right? So we can do if we create a new scanner and the source of that scanner is can be anything, text.txt. But the source, see, the source is a file, right? So this might throw an exception, which is why it tells us unhandled exception. So this is by the compiler. The compiler is saying that I'm not even going to compile this code because it might throw an exception and you're not dealing with the exception. So you could just say, okay, throws whatever it says there, file not found exception. But what if you know that your program is not going to throw an exception or you've already dealt with it? You just want this error to go away. Then you could communicate with the compiler using Lombok. So Lombok lets you use annotations, like annotations are like this, annotations to give extra information to the compiler. In order to use Lombok, just real quick, if something goes wrong in the exam, if you want to use Lombok, this is the pom.xml file. It is a part of the Maven build, like project builder. And I think it's called project object model. Just confirm. It might come in the MCQs. That's why. Project object model, yeah. So yeah, this is the pom.xml file. It contains all the dependencies that you will be using in your project. So in order to use Lombok, you need this. I'm sure the professor will provide that in the exam, but I'm just putting it out there just in case. And Jackson for the JSON stuff, but that's a bit later. So anyway, once you have Lombok enabled, you can tell it that you have dealt with the error or you don't want to deal with the error right now by this sneaky throws. What sneaky throws does is it still throws the error, but sneakily. So you don't have to deal with the error right now. This is useful for when you're in a hurry, you just want to make a working application as fast as possible. You don't want to deal with any of the, error handling right now. So yeah, that's sneaky throws. But anyway, those are annotations. Now we start from here. Annotation non-null. So you already know non-null. Actually, I don't think you will be needing it in the exam. It's just useful. I don't think you can see that window. I didn't enable it. But what non-null means is suppose you have a method, public void print out. So you have a method, right? What it does is it takes a string and it prints out that string. So all you do is system out and that string. So You can call printout like this. Print out. I'm pretty sure I'm doing something dumb here. I guess it's because static. Yeah. Okay. Print out. So we give it a string. We can say, so we have a string and it prints it out. Let's just test it real quick. Ah, so you see here, it did end up throwing a file not found exception, but it let us compile the code because of sneaky stores. So that's its use. But yeah, right now I'm not using it. Let's see, it should print out Lamau. Well, it's saying, why are we starting off with main? I'm just using main to explain the annotations real quick because these annotations have the same meaning no matter where you're using them. Main is just it's just the first name that came to mind. So as you can see, print out Lamau. So this is a method, right? What if we give it null? Null. Because, strings can be null. It says null here. Now, in this case, it checks out. No, we won't have to use sneaky throws in the exam. I'm just explaining the meaning because maybe it comes in the MCQs. So strings can be null, right? So what if we don't want it to be null? What if instead of just printing it out, we were doing something else with the string? Instead of printing it out, we were printing out the length of the string because strings can have length here. Now, you already know in Java, if you try to run a method on a null object, it's going to give the null pointer exception. We can try it right now. Boom, null pointer exception. So what if we want to prevent this? We know that this parameter cannot be null. Then we use this annotation by Lombok. It's called non-null. This will catch this problem before, see here, given string is marked non-null, but it is null. So this will catch it before the null pointer happens. So there is a difference here. Uh, Let me show you. See, if I don't use non-null, it the method executes as normal. String given string, we give it a null. And when it actually tries calling length on a null object, then it throws that error at Java line 10. So we don't know about the null pointer exception until it actually happens. And in a real life situation, that can have a lot of problems. It could, break a whole operating system, something like that. But if we use non-null, the error happens at line 9, which means it catches the error before it even happens. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna move on to the next one. Cleanup is useless for us right now. It's used for resource declaration. I don't think it's ever been used. If it has been used, if you know somebody, feel free to correct me. Okay, annotation getter setter. Okay, getter setter is the most important annotation right now. It's always used. So let's see. Let's say we have a class, right, to represent a student, and the student has some fields, private, string, process. How come setters aren't used in the exam? I think they are. They should, unless all the fields are final. So there should be a thing. Let me just check the exam. Prakash, you're sending it like a direct message. Can you send it to the public chat? And can you tell me where they're used? Yeah, I think because the final exam, we're not supposed to output anything to a file, right? It says all we have to do is implement the queries, and his code will call the queries itself. Yeah, we're not outputting anything to the student generate sentence. Yeah, we're just reading. That's why we just need getters. But don't worry, I'll explain well, there's nothing to explain in these annotations. I'll just explain through example real quick. So students have a name, students have an Neptune ID, students have a GPA. Now, if we want to generate getters for it, so what if they say generate getters for all the fields, but give it, okay, I'll just start with getters. Okay. At getter will generate getters for all of its fields automatically. So we can try it right now. Well, I'll show you another annotation real quick. It's called all args constructor. So what this means is all arguments constructor. So it automatically creates a constructor that takes in name, Neptune, GPA, and it assigns them. We can try it right here. You can go student, student is equal to new student, and we can see that it generates a constructor automatically. It asks for a name, asks for a Neptune, and asks for a GPA. So I can go my name. I'm gonna use a fake Neptune. Can't let the ops figure it out. GPA 6. So this is a student object that we have made, and let's try getting the Neptune. Let's try printing it out. Student dot get. You see, get GPA, get name, get Neptune. It has already been created. We didn't write anything. It's already been created. So that's what getter does. What if they ask us to make a, so there's different access levels. There's public, there's protected, there's package, there's private. What if they ask us to make any of these? They're like, okay, make getters, but I want the getter to be protected, let's say. So you can pass in arguments to these annotations. You just use brackets. And for getters and setters, if you want to set the access level, it's called the access level. You press A and it will give you all the suggestions. Even if you don't know what to put here, if you press Control plus space, it will give you a list of all the suggestions. Yeah, we only use setters if the question asks for it. So if you press Control plus space, it will give you all the suggestions, and it can save you sometimes because exam stress and everything, you forget what to put. And one important thing here that I spent like a whole 5 minutes getting confused by last night is getters. If you want to set the access level of a getter, and if you want to set the access level of a constructor, it's two different things. For getter, you do directly access level dot the access level. So getters, you want to make them private, let's say. So you do access level dot private. But for a constructor, if you press Control plus space, you can see it says access. So you click on access is equal to, and then you press Control plus space again. It will literally give you all the suggestions. That's how Control plus space. Space bar. For the list of acceptable arguments in any situation. It's such a useful feature and it's in every single IDE too. So yeah, a getter, we can have access level dot private, we can have access level dot module, none, package, protected, the whole thing. But normally getters are public, so if you don't put anything, since I am paranoid, I tend to put getter access level dot public if you ask for public anyway. But I have trust issues with programming. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Well, setters as well. If you do add setter, it will set up a bunch of setters. You can set the access level like this. Let's just make this package private, and you can try here. I can set the name to something else. Student.set name. Hmm, I know. Fahad, Daniel. And if we print student.get name, it should print Daniel. Constructor can reply to given types. Expected zero arguments, found three. Okay, you know what I did? I removed the constructor annotation. That's why. Now it's back. See, Daniel, it doesn't print Fahad. It was able to set the name successfully. Okay, next up. Exactly. Programming, you can't see the thing is in Java 17, it might have different defaults. For example, well, it can have something default, right? Like, for example, in the old Java, if you put AS nested enum, it might not have been static by default. Of course, now in Java 22, it is static by default. But he remembers back in the day when it wasn't that by default and he had to write everything. So if you keep programming, you will sympathize with him in like 5 years when there's new versions and they have their own features. Anyway, what am I doing on Firefox? So okay, getter setter done. ToString. So ToString and equals and hash codes are another type of notation. They're very interesting. So ToString. Let's start with ToString. You already know what ToString does. It creates a string representation of a class. So ToString in Lombok has, I guess, two main things I need to talk about. Let me just try something. No. I think ToString is always, yeah, ToString is always public. Okay, it has this thing called only explicitly included. So with ToString, as you know, we don't always want to have everything in the ToString. For example, in this case, the string representation of student, maybe we only want to have name and Neptune. Maybe we only want to have GPA. So what do we do in that case? If we only want to have name, it would be more convenient to just include the name, right? So you can go ahead and, by the way, if you forget the exact spelling, you can just put included, and you can see here only explicitly included. This is the field you need. So if we are only including one field into the toString, we can just, it would be easier to choose what is included. So we just do only explicitly included is equal to true. Now you want a name, right? You just go here above name and you write toString dot include. Now you can check out, you just try to print a student. It should print Dania. See, student name is equal to Dania. What if you want to print everything except the name? In this case, it would be easier to just exclude one thing, right? By the way, this include, you have to do it for every field. So if you want to include the name and the GPA, or if you want to include the name and the Neptune, you do toString dot include two times. This was something I was confused by because I thought, this would be enough for all three, but no. Okay, now what if you want to include everything except the GPA? So You do toString, but you don't need to explicitly include anything now. Just exclude GPA. ToString dot exclude. Boom. It excludes the GPA and it includes everything else. So that's toString basically. It's a very simple one. Okay, now equals and hash codes. If just for a revision, if you remember it from the previous classes, equals and hash code is used to see when a class is equal to another one. Not a class, an object is equal to another one. Like students, what is unique in each student? Their Neptune. So if you want to see if two students are equal to each other, as in they're the same exact student, by the way, in the exam, he will say something like two students are equal if and only if they have the same Neptune. For Lego sets, it says, I think, ID and stuff like that. But keep in mind, they can have more than one field in the equals and hash code. So the way equals and hash code works is similar to toString. You use equals and hash code, and it also has only explicitly included. So if you only want one field in it, you can just do only explicitly included true. So you go here and you want to include Neptune, right? Dot include. That's it. Dot include. So I actually, it's going to take some time to, how do I say, to confirm how this works. Like toString, it was easy to show how it works. But for this, I will have to make a constructor, no, comparator. So just trust me, it works like a toString. So in this case, only Neptune is included. What if you don't put this? You don't put only explicitly included. That means everything is included except something that you don't want to include. For example, you want to put name and Neptune, right? But you don't want GPA because two people can have the same GPA. So you just exclude from here. Now let me just test real quick. Our toString should still be working. Yep, it's still working. So that's equals and hash code. Okay, the constructors. No args constructor, required args constructor, all args constructor. Okay, meeting ends in 10 minutes. Uh, Sneaky throws, we've already covered it. At value and at data is not needed right now. Somebody just correct me if it's needed. I assume it's not needed right now. So, okay, so I'll finish these constructors so we can have the Lombok all done in the first video. So no arguments constructors, required arguments constructors, and all arguments constructors. Now in the class, just for simplicity, I'll remove toString and equals and hash codes right now. So, these three are arguments, right? These three are fields in a class. Classes can also have final fields. For example, here, no args constructor. It's a constructor that doesn't take any arguments. We can create a new student and we can just not pass any arguments. It will accept it. We'll see what happens if I try to print dot get name. I think it should be null. Yeah, it's null because we didn't assign it. It's all fine right now, but what if we have a final field, private final string passport? Now it's a problem because final is supposed to be initialized. So here you can do something if you really, you want to force it. You can go to noargs constructor and it has this parameter called force. This will forcefully assign the value null to passport number. So you can go here and passport number. It should say null. Yep, null. So yeah, that's the force parameter. Alternatively, you could do this required args constructor. So what required args okay, no args constructor still has a problem because we are still allowed to use a no argument constructor, which means that there is a possibility that the user can create a student without giving this final field. So we'll just keep force to true. So what required args constructor does is it only asks for the required arguments. Required as in what is final. So if we try to create a student here, so let me remove the no args constructor for now. So now there's only two constructors, required args constructor. You know what? Let me remove the all arguments constructor as well. So now we only have the required args constructor. Now you can see it asks for the passport number, which is the only required field over there. So yeah, that's the three types of constructors. All args, no args, and required args. Now one more thing we need to cover for about the constructor annotations is their access level. So how do you specify which access level is allowed for that constructor? You use the access one. And by the way, if you forget, you can just press Control Space. With Lombok, there's not a lot of parameters, so you can just scroll through all the options. Access is equal to, and if you still don't remember what to put after, you can press Control Space again. Okay, access level dot. Let's make the all args constructor public. Let's make the no args constructor private because well protected. We don't want it to be abused. Required args can be package. Why not? Package. So that's it for these. Let me just go over real quick. Is there anything about Lombok annotations that I forgot? If no, then I'll end this meeting and I'll start another one so we have more time. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one then.